From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. If you have any questions you'd like to ask or advice you'd like to give, come on over to podtherapy.net and join the conversation. We had a guest lined up for today, but unfortunately she was not able to make it due to her kettle booty class. In other words, or in other news, I just learned that there's such a thing as a kettle booty class. And now, broadcasting from the churn, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Sangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Okay, I want to guess what this is.
Go for it.
Okay, because I've never in my life heard about this.
I hadn't either.
So I'm going to guess, and you tell me if I'm hot or cold. So kettle is something you cook tea in. So kettle booty, I'm going to go with booty is not
wrong.
pirate's booty. Oh, okay. There's a class that's called kettle booty. Kettle corn. It's about making kettle corn. It's about making a treasure chest of kettle corn. It's something to do with like a pirate's chest of kettle corn.
It's easy. It's very clear that you've never been in a gym.
No. Oh, is there kettles? They have tea kettles?
A kettlebell.
What's that? It's like
kettlebell,
a cowbell?
It's like a cannonball with a handle.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those, and it's got the handle thing that goes over top.
She's at a kettle
booty.
Kettle booty.
So it's like kettlebell workouts that are designed to work your butt.
Oh, well, there you go.
Right.
And that is more important than pod therapy.
I agree.
I feel like that was the right allocation of her time.
Yeah.
How's your weekend going, Nick? We're recording this one earlier than we usually do. We usually record midweek, but this is a weekend, so you're dressed
weird.
Down. You look lovely. How's your weekend?
Oh, it's going pretty good. There's nothing too exciting. It's been pretty. Actually, we were supposed to have a house showing today, but it got canceled. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, so we're being kicked out of our house.
Oh, that's right. They want to sell the house.
Yeah, they want to sell the house. So.
Well, I had an interesting night last night. I was part of a surprise wedding.
Oh, that's right. I was going to ask
Did you see that on Facebook?
I did see that.
Yeah.
On
okay.
Facebook.
Cool. Yeah. So my brother-in-law has been dating this girl for 7 years. They live together. They're awesome. And they called me and they go, "Listen, we're lying to the whole family and saying that we're going to go have family pictures up on Mount Charleston. Will you show up and officiate our wedding? It's going to be a surprise wedding." So I was like, okay. So I kept that under my hat for weeks. We showed up. The whole family was there. And then they get out of their car in a tux and a wedding dress. And everybody's like, what the hell is going on? So it was really fun. So then we just went off in the meadow, and it was really cute. And I got to officiate a wedding. It's pretty fun. So, yeah, it was really cool. Special shout out to Steve and Ashley. Congratulations, Mazel Tov.
Congratulations.
It was a lot of fun. So that was super, super cool, and not something I get to do every weekend.
That is awesome.
But I would like to, if you want Jim to officiate your wedding.
Go to patreon.com/therapy.
We need a special package.
Sure.
Jim will show up and officiate your wedding.
Why not?
Only if it is surprise and on Mount Charleston.
There we go.
And if you were somehow related to Jim.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
Yeah,
so you
really fun.
Definitely had a more interesting weekend than I did.
Slightly, yeah, slightly more. And then we had the reception at his house, and so it was a lot of fun, and everybody just had a great time. And yes, so really, really cool. And it was so much fun to surprise everybody with this. Her family didn't know, his family didn't know. I knew, and then my wife was pissed at me. She's like,
"Oh, I was going to ask about
tell
that.
me this."
Yeah, because it's her brother.
I was like, "Dude, he told me not to, so I'm sorry."
Was anybody really upset?
No. There's nobody like objected to it, but his mother was really caught off guard. She was like, "Oh my God!" And it's funny because during the lead up to this, I pulled them aside. Like I took my son camping. Actually, the weekend of Scoop Fest.
Yeah. And
that weekend, I had them meet me out there in Red Rock, and I pulled them aside and said, "Hey, before you guys pull the trigger on this, you need to understand. Like, I've done this. I've gotten married. Like, you get one of these,
That's not true.
Well, you get one of these with this person.
I've had two. So.
You get your punch card filled in. The third one's free, Nick.
Yeah.
But I was telling them, hey, listen, like, your family could, have problems with this. Like, you think it's a good idea, but they support you, but they may want to say things, right? Like, this is a meaningful, symbolic thing. Your families might want to get in there and say something, prepare themselves for this. And so they that gave them pause, but then they decided, no, we're going to do it. And so it was cool. I mean, everybody went with it. Lots of tears, caught everybody off guard, and it was really, really fun.
Well,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great thing. So I got to do it. I've now officiated 3 weddings. Kind of a big deal.
That's great.
Yep. So
good for you.
I'm trying to beat you on the amount of weddings that you've participated in.
I'm
trying to officiate
the amount of
at least
times I've been married.
That's right. It's because I don't officiate them,
What an
Nick. If I
asshole.
did it, I could staple this thing together. I'm telling you.
Well,
I'm the missing ingredient.
in one of my marriages, one of my weddings, which makes me sound terrible. I've only been married twice.
You're
but
like the Hugh Hefner of this podcast.
out of the two of us, yeah, I guess so. That doesn't take much.
That's true.
But yeah, out of the second one was we eloped.
Oh, okay.
And we didn't tell
that's right.
anybody.
You guys went up to the islands,
Yeah,
right?
and we didn't tell anybody until we got back.
Oh, okay.
And there was only one person that was kind of upset, but I think everybody else was pretty happy. But I think the reason why they were excited about it was because they didn't want to go to another wedding.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
it was kind of a relief to everybody to be like,
oh yeah,
good for you. You
Wedding
did something
etiquette.
and I didn't have to go.
Just send me your registry. I will buy you something. Don't make me fly to Mexico or whatever's going on. Like, I had friends that tried to do that, and then a hurricane came and like ruined his wedding. And I was like, well, I wasn't there, so my bad. But no, so Nick, if you ever need me, you give me a call, buddy. I'll do it for a very reasonable rate.
That probably won't happen. But,
okay.
Speaking of weddings,
Yeah.
in our A block today,
Yeah.
something kind of interesting from the New York Times, how to harness your anxiety. So I came across this, and I thought this actually would be a good segment for us to kind of jump in. Because we get a lot of questions. There seems to be like patterns in the questions that we get. And I would say a big chunk of them are dealing with anxiety.
Yes.
So I figured this would be a really good one. So
Did you know before you launch into that that anxiety is the #1 most diagnosed mental illness in America?
Oh yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
In my caseload, I would say 90% of my caseload is exclusively just dealing with anxiety. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah, it's extremely common.
The interesting thing is exclusively with anxiety.
That's the primary diagnosis. That's the primary.
Okay.
Yeah, there's other stuff, but anxiety is #1. But anyway, this is a really interesting article.
Yes,
harnessing
anxiety.
Anxiety.
So Dr. Alicia Clark.
Oh, Dr. Clark. Yeah.
Whatever.
Alicia?
You don't know who that is.
Are you talking about Alicia? Alicia Clark.
Whatever.
Yeah.
What's her middle name?
H.
Oh, I see you have a copy of the script.
Oh,
too.
yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, shit, I got it right.
So anyway.
That was the letter.
So anyway, she wrote this article in the New York Times about how to harness your anxiety. And so it was really kind of an interesting read. So she kind of talks about how people deal with anxiety and how you can actually use this to your benefit to help you.
Okay.
Which is something kind of we generally don't think of anxiety that way. We think of it as a problem,
right?
Not as something that we can use as a tool.
Okay.
So she does make clear in here that this article is kind of geared towards people with moderate anxiety. Okay. So having really, really severe anxiety, this may not be some of this may still apply,
anxiety
but
is hard to harness.
Right. So the author talks about this loop that occurs with anxiety. And I even mentioned this when we were doing our live show.
Yeah.
That the big thing about anxiety is having anxiety about anxiety.
Yeah.
And so because it's something that happens in that animalistic part of our brain, the part that we don't really have a whole lot of control over, because it happens there, it kind of creates this fear response because we understand that we can't control it.
Right.
So anxiety has become something that we have learned, we've been taught to fear.
Yes.
But what she's kind of talking about is taking that and kind of taking a different look at it, right?
Change the perspective.
And one of the things, too, so I was listening to our live episode. I usually don't listen to any of our episodes.
As a rule, I don't ever go back.
But I was just kind of curious, so I went back. And the thing that, listening to that, there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to say now listening to it again that I didn't get the chance to, or I didn't think of it at the time.
Right.
But when we were having that discussion about anxiety, a point that I always like to really make, I was at a training and the facilitator made this observation about anxiety, which is that we think of anxiety disorder or just anxiety in general as being a problem. So, but the way here's an interesting analogy, an interesting way to look at it. I like to use this as kind of the African safari example.
Okay.
So if you're out in Africa, out in the wilderness, and you're by yourself, and imagine you're looking around and about 30 yards off to your right, you see a lion.
Right.
And you just see its head poking up above the grass, and its eyes are locked on you. Now, as you're imagining that, what is your body doing? Right? What's your heart doing? Your heart's starting to race.
Right.
Your breathing is becoming very shallow, very intense. Your muscles are starting to tighten up.
Yeah.
You immediately become alert to your surroundings.
Yes.
Your mind clears, right? So whatever it is that you were trying to focus on, it's gone now.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that matters is the lion.
Right. And so your body is doing this as a protective mechanism, right? Because you are going to have to run from this thing, or fight it off.
Or fight it.
So your heart starts racing because it's got to get blood and oxygen to your muscles. Your muscles are tense because they're getting ready to work. You become immediately alert because you need to know which way to go.
Yes.
Right? All of this is for survival purposes.
Yes.
So when you experience anxiety, what are the symptoms that you tend to experience?
Right.
What is your body doing?
Right, same
well,
thing.
Same exact symptoms. So the interesting way to look at anxiety, what is the difference between anxiety and anxiety disorder?
Right.
The difference isn't the symptoms. It's the lion.
The setting. Yeah, right.
It's the presence of a threat.
Right.
So when we experience those symptoms in an environment where there is a legitimate threat, that's not a disorder.
Right.
Our body is working the way it's supposed to.
Yes.
It's only when we experience these that we don't have that threat present that now it becomes a disorder.
Maladaptive. Right.
Exactly. So this article kind of talks about that and kind of looking at 3 different techniques or ways to look at anxiety that can be helpful, that you can use this as a tool to better yourself.
Well, number 1, fight the lion. Wow, is that what she talks about?
Amazingly enough, she did not bring that.
Oh, that feels like a gimmick.
No.
You know, went on safari and the lion's going to kill you. That little anxiety, that's okay. Accept that. Don't do breathing techniques.
Right. So one of the things that she talked about in this, she referred to a study done by the University of Wisconsin that concluded that the way that we think about anxiety determines in large part how anxiety affects us.
That's fair.
So if we view anxiety as being harmful, or as something to be afraid of, then the anxiety we experience is going to be much more intense.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, a few different things. Number 1, think of anxiety as a signal.
Okay.
So instead of looking at it as symptoms, look at it as my body's trying to tell me something.
Yes.
My body's trying to communicate something to me. What is that signal?
Right.
Okay. So try not to look at it in terms of good or bad, but instead look at it as just the way that your body communicates.
That's fair. It's kind of like whenever you hear a car alarm going off outside of your house. I think most of us don't immediately jump to my car's being stolen. Most of us take that as something is causing that signal to happen. Let's investigate further. Right. And I don't think we're startled by it. Like, it catches us. It's supposed to. But I think that we don't immediately dive into reaction mode. We kind of become curious. That's kind of what I hear you saying is see it as a signal, not necessarily an inherent, this is the thing itself. It's a signal of something that's triggering it.
Yes.
Okay.
And try to remove good and bad.
Right.
It's neither good nor bad. It's just a signal.
Just look at it.
Okay.
Go find out.
So then number 2, label the feeling to steer your experience. Okay. So this is what we would refer to, like in CBT, as kind of like reframing.
Yes.
So we kind of take it and we want to change the label or change how we talk about it.
Okay.
That will influences how we deal with it. So the example, so we're talking about relabeling anxiety so that you can use it towards your advantage. So the example that she gives in the article is, if you're terrified about a first date, to think about your heart beating fast as the possibility of it going well.
Okay. Like your heart is a flutter.
Right. All right.
Okay.
So we're taking the symptom. We're not trying to change the symptom.
Right.
But we're repackaging it.
We're not
into
pathologizing
it. Exactly.
I
so
like
we're instead of my heart's racing, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. I'm going to get something stuck in my teeth. She's not going to like me. I'm going to say the wrong thing.
Right.
Instead, we repackage that into my heart's racing because I'm really excited.
Yes.
Because this is going to go
We
well.
normalize it.
Right.
It's okay to feel this way. This is me being excited for a date.
Yes.
I like that. Okay.
And so the third one that she talks about is aiming for the sweet spot.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what she's
this
referring
is when
to...
you're hunting lions.
Right
Yes,
between the eyes.
Right between the eyes.
That's where...
Yeah. 2 to the head, 1 to the chest.
So don't aim for no anxiety.
Okay.
Okay, because no anxiety is just as harmful as overwhelming anxiety.
Right. Cutting the sound alarm on your car is a bad idea because now you can't know when there's a legitimate threat to your car. Okay.
Anxiety we need anxiety. We could not have evolved as a species without anxiety. Because anxiety tells us, hey, you need to do something.
Yeah, if you're mellow and chill staring into it kind of reminds me of Office Space. Remember that movie Office Space? When the guy goes and gets hypnotized because he has a lot of anxiety, he's really upset, and the hypnotist just transforms him to the point where he can't feel any fear or
Right.
like alertness or anything. And like, it turns out pretty good for him, but you can see where it's dangerous too. Because like he's taking huge risks with his career that he doesn't have a natural sense of fear anymore. And it's sort of dangerous at some point. So that's kind of how it is with this too.
Exactly. So we need to have anxiety. So look at anxiety as something that can be beneficial. It motivates us. It pushes us into action. So don't. I hear this a lot from people where they have this idea that I should be anxiety free.
Right. No, you
and
shouldn't.
we don't want that. What we want is we want a manageable level of anxiety. Right. So maybe from a 3 to a 5, somewhere in that kind of sweet spot.
I as I shared in the live show, right, I have generalized anxiety disorder. And I agree with that completely. My goal has never been to be anxiety free. It's to have functional anxiety.
Right.
Because I think that in some ways, my anxiety has given me an edge in some ways, and has actually made me a more productive citizen and a more productive employee sometimes, because my anxiety will cause me to do a little bit more, work a little bit harder, because I have a fear or whatever. And I think that in times it's actually been a good thing, but that's functional anxiety. But it very quickly can tip over and, become dysfunctional anxiety, where now this is getting in my way. It's not equipping me to fight the lion. It's putting me in a place where I'm paralyzed with fear, and now I'm actually more vulnerable.
Exactly.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. That's really interesting. So she wants to harness that anxiety, use it for productive purposes.
Yes.
Don't see it as a bad thing. Change the way you think about it. Change the name of it. And then aim for the sweet spot. What is functional anxiety? How do I ride this horse rather than, trying to put it away?
Exactly. And if we've learned anything from that study at the University of Wisconsin, that by doing this, it will have less of a harmful effect on you.
Yeah.
It will not affect you quite as much.
I think that's absolutely true. And this comes back to something that regular listeners of our show know about, which is we constantly bang the drum of a clinically significant amount of distress, right? So I've had people call me and say, hey, at what point is my anxiety a problem? And I say, well, tell me the problems you're having with your anxiety. Like, how is it blocking areas of your life? Is it preventing you from going to work? Is it causing you so much fear that you're wasting hours of your day, or are you disengaging from relationships that otherwise you'd be very productive in? But I'm looking for those things that show me that something's bad. But I think one of the things I really like that you just said is anxiety is a necessary human component. It is part of the correct wiring of the brain that keeps humans alive. We just don't live on the Serengeti anymore, where we're constantly faced with this bear or that lion or this danger or that snake, and we don't have to be on that same level of alertness to survive. Right. We're working at a cubicle and just kind of typing up a report, and then all of a sudden we get anxiety, and it's like, oh my gosh, now I'm dysfunctional. It's like, yeah, that's a remnant of your evolutionary past. Like, that's an alarm. You have to investigate it and also learn if you can dismiss it or silence it.
Yeah, exactly, because our lives have evolved faster than our brains have.
Yeah, well, some people's have, Nick. I feel that my brain has actually evolved beyond the normal people's abilities.
Sounds like a good time to take a break.
Can you levitate staplers? Okay, then shut up. I mean, I would do it right now to prove it, but I'm not going to do it.
That which is claimed must be demonstrated.
No, you know what? I'm not going to do it. You have to start with faith, Nick.
Whatever. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will discuss online therapy and another perspective of Me Too. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's Theraproducer sponsor is Grae Whittaker. On Twitter as @ScoopGrae, Grae told us that he is still getting caught up on the episodes, but after meeting us at ScoopFest and seeing how the podcast is impacting real people, he couldn't help but support it. Thank you, Grae, for helping us spread this message of mental health and for your support of our listeners. If you'd like to join the party and help make the show possible and tap into the sweet special content for patrons only, you can go to www.patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy. We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy, and our next question is about online therapy.
All right, this one is kind of short and sweet. This one came to us anonymously through our website. Online help. What is your opinion of BetterHelp and other types of online therapy services?
So there's actually a backstory to this, and I don't know if you're aware of it.
No.
So what happened was on Twitter, this is one of the many, many things I probably needed to apologize for. On Twitter, there was this big fiasco because these YouTube personalities that have millions and millions of people watching, a lot of them are pretty open about their experience with mental health, right? Having anxiety, having depression. Well, then they started, talking about that, letting listeners talk about that, and bringing that to the table, which a lot of people really applauded as being very, very authentic. Well, then what happened was they started saying, hey, by the way, guys, my sponsor for this episode is BetterHelp.com. Go there, use my code, and you can get a session. Well, a lot of people had a problem with that because it felt like, okay, one part of this feels a little creepy because your show's not about mental health, and like you're kind of capitalizing on people going through something. You're directly benefiting financially, so that was a problem. But then BetterHelp was getting grilled because their services were very, very poor, and their reviews were very, very poor, and there was a lot of people that were really frustrated. Like, okay, big important YouTube people, we trust you, we feel connected to you, you're directing us toward these helpers, and they turned out to not be sufficient. It was not a good, situation. So there was this huge backlash that happened in the YouTube verse where YouTubers started getting on there and going, hey, I apologize, I had never used BetterHelp, I didn't know anything about BetterHelp, they offered to sponsor it, it felt like a good fit, I'm sorry, I disavow it. So there was this huge backlash. So I tweeted about this because there were some interesting articles about it. And I basically just said, something about the YouTubers, something salty, as I usually do. But then I also said something like, I'm going to keep my opinion about BetterHelp to myself. And then immediately somebody posted anonymously on our website and said, hey, what's your opinion on BetterHelp? And figured, checkmate, Jim. I'll just put it into the show. Now you have to tell us.
Okay, yeah. I don't know where
that
I
was the backstory.
I missed that entire thing.
You don't follow my Twitter as you should, Nick. There's a whole lot going on.
That's what keeps me sane.
That's also part of your self-care.
Yeah.
Just don't watch Jim's Twitter. So, all right, I'll jump in on this first since I'm pretty confident this question was specifically directed to get me on the on the
I'm
record.
just going to sit here and drink my coffee.
No, you're going to weigh in on this too. So, all right, here's the deal. Full disclaimer, at Pod Therapy at one point was having a conversation with BetterHelp and with some of these other groups, eTherapy, another one called Talk something. I forgot what it was called.
Talkspace?
Talkspace, yeah. So 3 different groups that were having a conversation with us and saying, hey, you guys mentioned this kind of thing. Is this something that, we could be a sponsor of? And at the time, we were entertaining the idea, but we really believed that we wanted to be an organic community. We wanted the show to be sponsored by patrons and, not necessarily having the corporate element to it as well. But also, historically, if you go through our back catalog, you hear that we're okay with this. We say, hey, get help anywhere you can get help, right? So the truth is, I'm comfortable with BetterHelp. I'm comfortable with Talkspace. I'm comfortable with any of these guys. I'm comfortable with it because if your options are you're not going to get help, or you go create an account on BetterHelp and see a counselor that way, then obviously I'm 100% for the second option, right? Also, a lot of people complain about BetterHelp because they say the therapists and counselors that are on there are pretty poor quality. That's always hard for us to hear, right? Because I think I'm usually protective of my colleague, and I'm usually going to say, hey, are you giving yourself to this? Are you ready for this medium? There's a million things I want to know about before I'm going to say my therapist colleague was bad at their job. I usually think it's very hard to get licensed. I think there's a lot you have to prove. And just because you're on an online format doesn't mean you're garbage. You're still licensed. I know that BetterHelp and Talkspace and all these guys require that you have a license in order to practice on their platform. And I actually went and got credentialed with them at one point. But here's the trick to this. And so this is the part I was unwilling to tweet about, but I will talk here, and somebody will use it against me one day. So I'm credentialed with Talkspace. And whenever they approach me and they're like, hey, come take some sessions with us, I refuse. And, to tell you guys some of how the sausage is made and how these things go on in the background, the reason I refuse is because an hour of my time seeing somebody on Talkspace is an identical hour of my time that I could have been seeing somebody in my clinic, right? Or seeing somebody through another medium. But Talkspace reimburses at about 1/10 of what you'd receive in any other way. So if you saw a patient in real life, you would get about 10 times what you're getting in reimbursement for Talkspace. So what that means is because they choose to do it that way, all the therapists who sign up for this are either therapists that are not highly in demand because they don't have anybody else competing for that hour, or they're just filling vacancies. They're just filling a few hours on their chart, with some Talkspace work. And so that's not their passion. That's not like their medium of doing this all the time. And so granted, they might not give themselves to it and bring enough energy and enthusiasm for this kind of method as you might see elsewhere. And so that's kind of how the sausage is made. So when I look at BetterHelp, I'm for it. I'm okay with this. But if you're wondering why have they not been successful, why are the reviews bad, my guess is I'm not going to say it's bad colleagues. I'm going to say that it's colleagues who are probably not in demand. There's not a lot of competition for that hour in their life. And also, again, like you're making 1/10 of what you make in real life. It's just not going to be, I think, very attractive to the folks that can go earn 10 times that doing the same thing. So that's the backstory of BetterHelp. So what's my opinion on it? It's a good thing, but, for me personally, if I had another option, I would probably seek that other option if I needed therapy. Unless BetterHelp was the right fit for my life, and then I would go give it a try.
Okay.
So that's my side of it. Now, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't know anything about BetterHelp.
Well, what is your opinion about online therapy?
Online therapy? I don't know. I guess I don't really, I haven't used it. I haven't tried it. I don't, I don't do it myself. So I guess I don't know a whole lot about it, but that makes sense to me because originally when we started this whole talk just now, in my mind, I was thinking, I get how somebody can go to an agency or one online company, but how can all of the therapists in that company or that agency be terrible? Like, it just seems unnatural how they could all be bad.
Right.
But now I'm kind of understanding a little bit has to do with who is attracted to work at those agencies based off of reimbursement rates.
So as we were talking right now, as you just were giving that statement, I just got booked online for the telehealth software that I do use. I use something called American Well. But American Well is like Nevada-based, and it partners with insurances. It reimburses through insurances. So it's not like, BetterHelp. BetterHelp doesn't bill your insurance. Like, you subscribe to it like Netflix. And so then...
Oh, okay.
So it's a much cheaper option.
BetterHelp then would take a big chunk of...
The pay. Yeah. And so you subscribe to it like Netflix for like a monthly fee, and then you get a certain amount of sessions with your therapist, which is fine. And I think it's innovative, and I think it's a great idea. We're also in the beginning years of this model, and so I do want to see them succeed, but that's the challenge of it, is that for somebody who has, $100,000 in student loans, who spent all these years getting degrees and getting credentials and trying to do all this, they kind of need the amount of money that an insurance can pay them. And so it's competitive. And so they kind of have no choice but to go do that, or they're losing money if they go to Talkspace. But like the telehealth software that I use, I just got booked right now. I love it, by the way. And I don't do it through Talkspace. I do it through like an insurance-based one. But I have, as far as quality and what it's like to connect with my clients, I sense no difference. If anything, I've noticed it being almost better for me and the client because it is so natural. I am looking at them at their living room, level, or at their kitchen table. And it's very powerful. Like one time I was talking to, actually this was 2 days ago, I was talking to one of my patients and her cat jumps up on her lap. And now like I'm watching her and her cat and like she's telling me all about her cat. And like it's very powerful for me to kind of get eyes on that and see her real
environment. It's kind of what they always used to say about in-home therapy.
Oh, it's huge.
And why, a lot of the old school therapists, that's what they used to do, is they used to love
house
going
visits.
In-home because you get to see how they're living. You
It's
get
very
to see stuff
inefficient.
that you wouldn't see.
Right. But
in
so
an actual
powerful.
therapy
And
session.
that's what this gives me the ability to do. It gives me a window into their lives. So I'm actually a huge fan of the technology. I'm a huge fan of the medium. It's just these companies that are trying to jump into this space, they haven't put it together right. And another thing they're missing is clinical supervisors. They don't have that. Everybody's a hired gun.
Right.
Whereas in a proper world, somebody has checked on you. Somebody's reading your
kind of
notes.
Oversight.
Exactly. And so that part's missing. But
all right.
yeah, but if you're out there and you're thinking about giving it a shot, go to BetterHelp.com, use our code PodTherapy. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, you can try that.
You can try it, hell. But no, I think it's better than nothing. But a lot of people have, been frustrated by it, and that's okay too. So that's our opinion on that. But you want me to jump into the next question?
Yeah,
Since that was a short one. So we have another really good one. This one's titled "Another Male Perspective on Me Too." Hey guys, I listened to the male perspective on Me Too in episode number 40, and it struck a chord with me. In college in 2007, I was at a party with my roommate, and we were drinking heavily. I was sitting on a couch, and a cute girl was standing in front of me and unintentionally bumping into me. And without consent, I grabbed her butt because I liked it. This girl was basically a stranger to me at that time, but after this incident, while we were not drunk, we consented on hooking up, and had good times hooking up and hanging out in the future. This moment was a life-changing moment for me. Prior to college, I was not outgoing or confident in myself with women. This incident turned me into more of a masculine male who wasn't afraid to be upfront and approach women as more than just a friend. I think I would have come out of my shell eventually without this incident, as I was moving in that direction anyway. But with the advent of Me Too, I had started to reflect on this moment in my life because I acted without consent. The girl at that time took my action as flirting, and I was flirting with her as well. If she did not respond in the way she did, I think I would have been mortified and apologized for my actions, and it may have changed me in a different way. I'm conflicted with the ideas of the, quote, alpha male, who does what he wants without regret and is not afraid to be upfront with women. But at the same time, I used the alpha male mentality to get over my fear of women and rejection. Flash forward to now. My wife was a victim of sexual assault and has PTSD and anxiety as a result of her incidences as a kid. We also have a son and daughter together, and it's our responsibility to educate them on consent and how to act. But I'm conflicted with my actions as a young adult, especially now as a parent, and in a post-Me Too world. I'm conflicted with the ideas of the alpha male mentality, but without that, I would not be the person I am today. I think that part of the ideas of being upfront and direct with women are important to having a healthy relationship, but some of the actions that may be associated with it, my personal example in this case, are wrong. Just wanted to know your thoughts. Patrick.
That's a good one.
I like that one.
Yeah, we've had, now this is the second one that we've had, the second email that we've had about the whole male perspective on Me Too, and it's difficult because I think we're kind of navigating these waters and just trying to figure things out as we go. But one thing that I want to point out here too, when he's talking about alpha male,
right?
Maybe that's something that we need to kind of figure out and define, because
Sure.
I don't think we need to go from one extreme, which is obviously terrible with this idea, this
Right.
domination,
Yeah.
to the completely opposite extreme, which is that we're just going to completely...
It's an overcorrection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a happy medium, I feel.
Yes.
And to me, I think let's go back to alpha male. How do you define that? Because
Right.
how we define that, I think, says a lot about what trajectory we're on. In my mind, when I think alpha male, I don't think of guy that grabs a woman, kisses her against her will, and,
Right.
and tries to impose himself on her or anything
Yeah.
by trying to, puff himself up.
Yeah, that's not
I
an
think-
alpha male to me. That's
no.
a dick.
Right.
Like, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
I don't look
Okay.
at that guy and go, there's a man's man.
So
I
to
look at that guy
me-
and go, he's going to go to jail
Yeah,
for
yeah,
assault.
exactly.
Like, he's
Yeah.
not okay. I don't want to be
He
friends
should
with that
not
guy.
be out in society.
No.
Okay, so I want to get your take
Yeah,
on
he's
this
not
too.
the leader
What
of the
you
pack.
define as alpha male, because for me, alpha male, I think of as confident.
Yes.
I think of somebody gentlemanly,
Yes.
confident,
I think
secure.
confidence and
secure
security are
himself.
the two pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that means that you have to be pushy.
You're breaking all the rules. So I think that there's some truth to this. Here's what I really like about this letter. It asks us to appreciate, without making huge statements about how all situations should always be in the future or what laws should say in writing. This person is writing in and saying, "Hi, I'm an American male, and I was sexually interested in this girl, and I showed that physically rather than verbally. It worked out. She liked it, and it was a good thing for both of us. And I have historically noticed that when I am assertive and confident, things are good, and they generally go my way, and the women in my life like me. It's a good thing." And this conflicts with the narrative I'm seeing, which is, okay, but there's a lot of women who, if that didn't work for them, and if that girl didn't like what I did at that party, I would be one of the guys in her diary.
Right.
That she says, hey, this jerk, did this to me, and I'm bothered by it. And I think that, Nick, this is what I kind of look at as the sexuality paradox of our time. Dr. Victoria Hartman, the curator of the Erotic Heritage Museum, has very strong opinions about Me Too. She is a hardcore feminist, right? Mm-hmm. But she also really doesn't like that Me Too is having the side effect of making sex taboo again. And she's really for people being very honest and direct about their sexual desire and intentions. And she doesn't like the delicacy, that the kid gloves that we sometimes treat sex with, that she doesn't want it that way. She kind of wants people to be direct. And she, in some of her writings, has talked about how men are this way, right? Like, all these hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years of evolution, men are somewhat sexually aggressive, and there's a part of women, in her words, that kind of desire this first move on their part. And if you look through, female erotic fiction and female storytelling, a lot of times the male is not, super submissive and just kind of waiting to be asked. A lot of times he's pretty assertive. And that's romantic in some contexts, and in some contexts it's not. And that's the paradox, I think. Now, I don't have an answer in my pocket about that, but I think I like the honesty of us looking at an incongruent, conflicting paradox situation and saying that that's what it is. Saying it's hard to come up with a list of rules that always apply. that there's not a part of this that's unspoken, intuitive, and subliminal. And that's part of what is sexy, and that sex is this weird part of the human being, which is very reptilian. It is very base brain. It's one of the most base things we have. And yet it's also something that has this amazing traumatic and emotional power to it. It's like this flaming sword that must be handled with care.
Yeah, I agree too, and I don't know as if I really have a good answer either, other than I think I get what he's saying, and I think part of the conflict here is that for him that worked, and it helped him improve his confidence.
Yes.
That's the big thing that I'm kind of taking from this letter is I did this, and as a result, I feel very confident, and then he's kind of stuck in his head like, well, what if it didn't go down that way?
Yes.
Like, he kind of walked that line very carefully.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think a lot of males growing up now and coming of age now are going to have to figure out. They're going to have to figure out that line of...
But this is something huge, what you just said right there.
What?
A lot of males coming of age now are going to have to figure out this line. I completely agree with that, but here's where I kind of look to the men and feel some sympathy. How the hell are you supposed to learn that? Right? Mm-hmm. Because most of us, we learn how to approach women in a herd, okay? We get with other men in high school and college, and you get that group of men bumps into a group of girls, and you watch the oldest among you, or the one who's the most experienced, most confident, the alpha, so to speak. You watch what he does, and then you go, okay, that worked, and then you try that, right? Or you have an older brother, or somebody teaches you how to do this,
or
right?
Or
movies, yeah. I'm reminded of the movie The Three Musketeers, the Disney one, with Kiefer Sutherland, and this Patmos or whatever that guy's name is. He wants to teach D'Artagnan the art of womanizing, and so he teaches him how to woo women. Porthos, there it is. Thank you, Jacob. Jacob is a literary scholar. He knows these things. But no, Porthos wants to teach D'Artagnan how to woo women, and he calls it wenching. And he's like, this is the manly art of wenching. So here's my point. My point is, one of the fantasies I've sometimes thought about is opening up a charm school, where therapists, male therapists, positively teach young men, how to role model and how to date appropriately. How can you signal things? How can you still be sexy? How can you still be, nonverbal? But how do we do this artfully in a way that is appropriate, gets the results? And there's a lot of young men out there that have a failure to launch, have a fearfulness right now of gosh, I don't know what to do. And I don't blame them. They're not inherently evil.
Right.
They're confused. They don't know. And, whenever you're hyped up on alcohol and suddenly you have liquid courage, I don't want that to be the time that you start a scientific experiment to find out what women like.
Right.
I'd like to approach this thoughtfully, but...
So if you're interested in Jim Jobin's Charm School, go
Jim
to
and Nick's
patreon.com/therapy.
That'll be our summer project next year. We'll host Charm School, and people can come to it. I think it's a real thing. But no, this is a great question, and I don't have a clear answer to it. Because I have heard even women that I know who are respected academicians talk about how she doesn't want to see the over softening of male behavior because that she's attracted to that, and she knows a lot of women who are, and she doesn't want to see men stop having some of those masculine traits. But as you said earlier, we have to address the caricature of masculinity that we sometimes see.
Yeah.
The Weinsteins of the world think that masculinity is using power to force women to have sex with you, or to use your power and influence to corner them to a place where they feel like they have to. And I can see why power is sexy, but that is an abuse of power. That's a different thing. That's not masculine. That's criminal. Right. And that's something I really want society to start divorcing, is what is masculine and what is inhuman, right? And right. I want us to start defining those two things differently, because criminal assault just has to be different than interested male signaling interest.
Right.
We have to have a different barrier for that.
And there are appropriate ways of using your power, like bypassing TSA at the airport altogether.
Yeah. That's an abuse of power. Jacob. For our patrons, they're laughing because they're like, I heard that part. All the regular listeners are like, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah, it's better that you not know.
Yeah.
It'll just piss you off.
Yeah, Jacob's drunk with his power. He's got his government chip, though. He paid
that sentence was a little long. It's just a 2-word sentence.
Oh, my God.
Great question, though.
Thank you for writing in.
Sorry we didn't have better answers to it.
Yeah.
We are currently wading through the complexity.
We're trying to figure it out ourselves.
Yeah, we're with you, though. I think that but I'll tell you this. To the writer, I appreciate that you are a student of this problem. I appreciate that you have children and you're approaching this as complex and unclear, and you're cautioning them to read the room, right? And to read the person that they're interested in, and to approach with caution and care. I think if we have that as our principles, if we have that as our method, we will more often than not find ourselves on the right side of every situation. I think it doesn't come down to this is what's good and this is what's bad. It does not come down to here are the rules. This is when you can touch. This is when you can't touch. Here's whenever you can look them in the eye and say something. Here's what you can say and can't say. Here's when to use profanity and when not to. I don't want to get to a checklist. What I want is to set up a method, and I want that method to sort of have ethics attached to it. This is how you ethically, approach somebody you're sexually interested in, and these are the principles that you generally follow. I think that we can get there, and that would be helpful. I just don't have that written out yet, but stay tuned. Jim's Charm Schools are coming.
We're working on it. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we will discuss playing video games too much. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's Theraproducer sponsor is Dr. Ben Doughan. Ben is an unusual sponsor in that he alone possesses the recording of episode 13.
That's right, I forgot about that.
A show so bad that we simply didn't post it and instead auctioned it off. Ben also has a lifetime of dirt on Nick, which we are all looking so forward to hearing during his advertiser segments. If you'd like to join the party to help make the show possible and tap into that sweet special content for patrons, go to www.patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy. We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next listener writes in wondering if his gaming is a problem.
Am I playing video games too much? It may be a little thing, but I've gotten into a really dirty habit lately of playing short computer games like Pokemon Go or Hearthstone on a daily basis. The games feature daily quests or tasks that become like morning chores or rituals that I wind up performing every single day, even if it means skipping breakfast now and then. While these things don't seem like a full-on addiction, messing with my life overly much, do you think there's a danger or bad effects that could come from them ongoing? Sent to us anonymously.
Yeah, it's funny because, so I know that you don't even know what games he's talking about.
Nope.
But have you heard of Pokemon Go? Are you aware of that? Okay. So Pokemon Go is an app, right? And you go out into the real world, into the sunshine of existence, and you go catch Pokemon that are like simulated in the game based on where you are in the GPS. But what's interesting is you get these eggs, these like Pokemon eggs, and you want them to hatch. In order to get them to hatch, you have to walk a certain amount of miles. And so like this egg will be like a 10-mile egg, and that's like a really valuable egg, or a 20-mile egg is a really valuable egg. And this thing charts by GPS how fast or when you are walking. And if you get enough miles, the egg will hatch. And like you get a special prize. And you can't cheat it. You can't like get in a car. If you're moving faster than like I think it's 15 miles per hour, it won't count it because it assumes that you're driving or whatever. So this is my point. The writer writes in and says, here's some examples of things that I do. It's part of my routine now. Is this bad? Again, and you've heard me get on this, stump before, I do not like the pathologizing of technology, that every video game is now bad and addictive, and everybody that enjoys this too much, and this is their hobby, that's inherently, pathological. I don't agree. People that wake up in the morning and check the news on their app, why is that different than this guy who wakes up and chases some Pokemon for a couple of minutes? Why is that different from somebody who jumps into their Clash of Clans game to see if all their stuff got upgraded and to drop down a few more bases or whatever? Somebody who wakes up and checks the newspaper, watches MSNBC, checks their stocks. Like, I feel like these are all just brain awakening activities that we do over a cup of coffee. And so when I read this letter, Nick, I'll tell you my first look at it, I go, this is awesome. Like, I have no problem with this. I mean, skipping breakfast, okay, like if that's a problem, then obviously, let's take a look at that. But otherwise, I think that this is brain warming up kind of rituals. I'm fine with that.
Right. Well, I guess from my perspective, I would agree with you. I don't necessarily, from what he's writing about here, he or she is writing about, I don't see anything that's really concerning. However, something was concerning enough to write in about. So I was just wondering if that is actually something that, if there's more to this or not. But here's my advice to the listener. What I would encourage you to do, first of all, I applaud you for having awareness enough to actually look at it and be like, is this a problem, and start questioning it. The fact that you're questioning it probably makes me think that maybe it's not. But What I would do is I would encourage you to complete this sentence as many times as you can. I will know this is a problem when blank.
Okay.
So you
That's
have
good.
some kind of preconceived idea, or
Where the
what
line
are
is.
the warning signs that, okay, once this happens, I know I've got a problem.
Yes.
Because this can save you so much time, because addicts and alcoholics don't do this, right?
Yeah, they don't ask that
You
question.
don't notice it until after the fact, until much later. And it's usually after everybody else has noticed it, right?
Yes.
But you have a unique opportunity here where if this is something that you're seriously concerned about, do this little exercise, identify what things you can expect that would indicate to you that this is a problem, so that when they do happen, it's kind of it's a shot across the bow, right? It's a red flag that pops up. It's like, oh, I just wrote about this.
And the way
I
you
should
can
look
work
out.
on that sentence to kind of figure out what are those red lines. Ask yourself, what are areas that this could bump into that could become a real problem, right? So like breakfast is one thing. Okay, maybe. If I'm now getting off late to work, if I'm leaving the house without brushing my teeth or putting on deodorant because I had to skim some more time for my game. Okay, these are now becoming a distraction. It's now taking real estate in your life that really was better reserved for more productive things.
It's starting to cause problems with relationships, with other people.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, and this again goes back to our general concept of clinically significant amount of distress. We're always looking for how in real life this impacts you. But I like his question, Nick, and I like your answer, because he says, listen, I granted, I don't think it's an addiction. I don't think it's a problem. But he says, is there a danger of these bad effects becoming bigger and more ongoing? And so I hear you saying, there's always that, right?
Well,
but here's how you get ahead of it.
Yeah, but especially now. I mean, they know, video game designers know how to make their game addictive. Like
Right.
they've spent millions of dollars researching how the brain works.
Right,
you know,
right.
and this, how they always cut you off.
Right.
Right. They, you play it for so long, and then you have to stop. You have to take a break. You can't touch it for another 24 hours,
Sure.
or you lose a
pay
life
money.
or whatever.
Yeah, you pay
exactly.
money to get another life.
That's the hedonic treadmill.
Right.
Right. I mean, they get you off of it before the novelty and the excitement of it wears off.
Yeah, the hedonic treadmill, also my favorite exhibit at the Erotic Heritage Museum. It's slightly different than the thing that you're describing. But
Right.
No, there's absolute truth to that. I think that's very, very true. And yeah, I think that you're fine where you're at right now, but I completely agree with how Nick phrased it. I think that's the winning point, is get ahead of it by answering that question. What was that sentence again?
What sentence?
The sentence that you told him to repeat to himself.
I will know this is a problem when blank.
Yeah, no, I really like that.
Yeah,
That's the way you know.
See, I used to use that all the time in treatment when I was doing some treatment groups. If I had somebody who was who just really didn't see their use as a problem,
Right.
then I would have them do that, and then it's like, because then what happens is they start listing stuff that has already happened.
Right.
And then they're like, I guess this has kind of happened in this way.
Yeah.
I guess it has happened that way too.
Yeah, keep track of it, right?
Yeah.
Audit the problem. But yeah, thanks for writing in. Great question. All right, so we have got to the end of the show, Nick, where we have our apologies, our Patreons, reviews, and also we're going to be announcing our book club and the book that we're going to be reading. But I'll start with the apologies. Dear friendly desert conservation mascot, Mojave Max the turtle. I'm sorry that I threatened to murder and bury in the desert anybody who litters to avenge your honor. You're right. I took it too far.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Mojave Max actually tweeted back to me. So Mojave Max tweeted like, "Oh guys, it was like the sad like Indian commercial, like there was like litter in the desert, and like Mojave Max was standing there, and it was like, please don't destroy my home." And I was a little in a good mental place, and I tweeted and I was like, "I will murder and I will bury in that desert whoever made Mojave Max cry." And Mojave Max actually tweeted back to me. He was like, "Hey, thanks a lot, Jim, but take it down a notch." Maybe just a stern talking to. And I was like, "All right, Max, whatever you say. This turtle's a made man." Dear retired NBA star Kobe Bryant, I'm sorry that when I heard you were disinvited from being a judge at the film festival, that I mockingly called you the Roger Ebert of our time and said, quote, "How can we trust that whoever replaces Kobe will have the refined cinematic palette of a player with the most missed shots in NBA history?" That was salty of me, Kobe. My bad. Dear sentient robots, I'm sorry that I said that millions of robocalls that are infecting our cell phones are part of a robot conspiracy to get humans to kill themselves out of annoyance. Robocalls aren't your fault. Remember that I said this during the inevitable uprising to overthrow my species. I was one of the good ones, Nick.
Very nice.
I was one of the ones who accepted their rule and was fine with it. So let the record show.
All right, and we want to thank our new THERAPALs, Craig.
Craig.
Just goes by Craig.
Yeah, just Craig.
We all know Craig. Thank you, Craig. Daniel Matthias Furr.
Yep.
Hope I got that right. Ian Kofall. Jeffrey Scoops of War Ackerman. Sweet Cup and Cakes. And 3 Scoops a Lady. Thank you
guys. Welcome to the club. We also want to thank our THERAPODs, the dapper 3-toed reptilian patrons. Big thank you to Corey Owens, David Younts, John Bankenship. John B., by the way, his gift game is
Spot
on point. Yeah. He has taken what we do whenever somebody becomes a THERAPOD or a THERAPRODUCER is we usually tweet a GIF of like this really awesome scene from Jesus Camp where kids are like worshiping in the aisles and like going into seizures, and then this woman's at the front, but somebody replaced her head with a raptor. And so I always post this thing, and that's like the ongoing joke. John B. has started this revolution where he always waits for that, and then he jumps in with a GIF of whatever THERAPOD GIF he can come up with. I'm pretty sure he has indexed the entire internet for like every possible thing that has reference to a THERAPOD. So good job, John. Kate Keller, Lori Kellenbach-Eltzroth, Linda Brandmeier, Mandy Abaila, Manuela Musaku, Peter Van Pelt, and Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, who used to be a THERAPAL, and then he upgraded to a THERAPOD. I saw you do that, Nate.
Thanks, Nate.
You're awesome.
And, of course, we want to say thank you to our bosses, the Elite 8, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of our fan club, the THERAPRODUCERs. We have 8 spots, and they are now all taken.
All 8.
So thank you, Ben Dawn, David, Data Scoop,
Vialon,
Grae Whittaker, Jake Schneider, Judy Schneider, Kayla Lansbury, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, and Smitty Scoop.
Yes, and if you would like to hear this episode uncut and unedited and enjoy things like our book club and discussion groups, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and join the party for as little as $1. So we have a big announcement on our Patreon. We are going to be launching a book club in the month of November. We have been asking folks to give us some recommendations of books they might be interested in. Obviously, we are a therapy show, so the books have to do with psychology or self-help, the kinds of things that Nick really enjoys and drive me insane. And I actually already warned everybody on Patreon, like, I will read the book. I will participate in this conversation, but I'm probably just going to be complaining the whole time. So everybody's preparing for this. It's going to be pretty negative.
Yeah.
So we're officially announcing the book that is going to be our November book, and this is a book that everybody should pick up before November. That way they can participate in our Patreon member-only book club discussion.
We are going to go with The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson.
Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. Got it. Okay.
Fuck.
Oh, was that the word? Okay. Thank you for that.
I've read that.
No way!
Oh,
Jacob,
Jacob's
have you
got
read
a head
it?
start.
I enjoyed it.
Did you really?
I did.
How many stars would you give it?
Out of what, 5?
Yeah.
4.
Okay. Solid book.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Would read again or would pass on to somebody?
I'd pass it on to somebody.
If you have that copy, I will take it.
Yeah, I read it online.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I could have scored a free book. Cool, man.
So Jacob's officially in the book club.
Yeah, there you go. Endorsed by Jacob Smith. Yeah. That's the star that people want on their book. Screw the New York Times bestseller list.
The bet to make is whether I will have read anything else that you guys read.
Well, right now you're 1 for 1, and I'm 0 for 1, so congrats.
Well, I am too. Yeah, I wanted to pick a book that I've never read. So
well, awesome. So if you want to join our book club, go ahead and pick up that book in November in whatever format you want. Don't start reading it. In November, we will announce exactly which chapters we're going to read and you know, the pace. That way you can be part of the conversation and be up to date. And you can join us at patreon.com/therapy. If you want to jump into the book club, you still have time. And looking forward to being part of that project with everybody.
Yep.
That's all the time that we've got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, Pod Therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Help us reach others by sharing this episode. You can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys, and now on patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to add your own advice to today's questions? Post your thoughts at podtherapy.net and join the conversation. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Jobin.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.